By the time Vivian Hawthorne's private jet stopped at the edge of runway 4, everybody in that glass terminal had already decided I was the problem. The Gulf air smelled like hot salt and sweet jet fuel. Her son stood near the boarding stairs with one hand on his overnight bag, and Grant Kellerman kept tapping his clipboard like the paper was innocent. Vivian had paid me to disappear 20 minutes earlier. Cashier's check. Clean envelope. My name typed wrong across the front. I should have walked away. But then I saw the seal tag hanging crooked beneath the access panel, bright as a lie under all that polished white paint. So I made one phone call. And that phone call grounded her jet before the engines ever got warm. But to understand why this mattered, you need to know who I was before that afternoon. My name is Isaiah Turner, and I had spent most of my adult life around airplanes that belonged to people who never had to check the price of milk. I was 42 years old, an A&P mechanic, and I worked out of a rented maintenance bay behind a private airfield outside Pensacola. The bay had 2 rolling doors, one floor fan that screamed on its 3rd setting, and a soda machine that swallowed every 3rd quarter like it had a gambling problem. My daughter Naomi called it Daddy's airplane cave. She was 9, skinny as a runway light, with 2 front teeth that still looked too big for her face. She loved model planes. Not normal names either. She named them after breakfast food: Pancake 1, Biscuit 2, Waffle Rescue. That week she was building a little Gulfstream out of balsa wood and glue, except one wing sat higher than the other. I reached for it once. She pulled it back against her chest. Don't fix it. It's learning. That was Naomi. She could make a crooked wing sound like a life philosophy without meaning to. Most mornings, I packed her lunch before school, then drove to the hangar with coffee gone cold in a chipped travel mug. My hands already knew the work before my mind caught up. Safety wire, inspection mirrors, torque wrench, logbooks, hydraulic lines. I trusted metal more than I trusted people, mostly because metal didn't pretend. One morning, I caught myself looking at my hands in the restroom mirror at the hangar. Grease sat deep in the cracks around my knuckles. A thin white scar crossed my thumb where safety wire had snapped back years earlier. My right wrist still clicked when rain was coming in from the Gulf. I turned my palm under the buzzing fluorescent light and saw every bill, every late night, every promise I had made without saying it out loud. Naomi's mother, Denise, was still alive. People always lowered their voice when they asked, like divorce was a funeral with paperwork. The truth was harder to explain. 6 years before, a maintenance failure on a private aircraft had put Denise in the hospital and put our marriage somewhere neither one of us knew how to reach. She left town after that, sent birthday cards, called sometimes, loved Naomi in a way that never quite found the right road home. I never told Naomi the whole story. That was my flaw. I called it protection, because that sounded better than fear. So when she asked, "Did Mom hate airplanes before the accident?" I said, "Eat your cereal, baby." Her spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. I should have answered. Instead, I folded the question up and carried it with the rest of my tools. Then Hawthorne Aviation called. Hawthorne Aviation did not call people like me unless somebody else had already failed. The request came through a dispatcher named Lyle, who always sounded like he was eating crackers over the phone. He said a Hawthorne Gulfstream had thrown a hydraulic warning twice in 1 week, but their regular crew had cleared it both times. "Then why call me?" I asked. Lyle chewed once. "Because Mrs. Hawthorne doesn't like lights blinking on airplanes she owns." The jet sat inside Hangar 7. White paint polished so bright the ceiling beams reflected along its nose. The carpet runner beneath the boarding stairs looked cleaner than my church shoes. There were bottled waters lined up on a silver tray, all labels facing the same direction. Vivian Hawthorne stood beside the stairs in a cream suit, speaking to a man through one wireless earbud. She looked at my truck first, then my boots, then finally my face. "You're the mechanic?" she asked. "I'm Isaiah Turner." She gave a small nod that did not quite use my name. "We're on a narrow schedule." Her son, Oliver, maybe 11 years old, stood behind her with a backpack hugged to his ribs. He had the pale, tired look of a child who had learned adults whisper more when something is serious. Grant Kellerman came down from the cabin holding a clipboard against his chest. Tall man, silver hair, airport badge clipped exactly straight. He smiled without giving anything away. "Turner," he said, "this should be simple. Intermittent sensor issue. We just need an outside signature." "Outside inspection," I said. His smile stayed where it was. Of course. Vivian glanced at her watch. "My son has a medical appointment in Boston tomorrow morning. I cannot have a delay over a light that 3 people have already called harmless." She was right about one thing. A child's appointment mattered more than a mechanic's pride. I knew that. I felt it before anybody said it. But Grant was already sliding a maintenance log toward me with one finger, like he was feeding paper into a machine. "Sign off after visual confirmation," he said. "No need to make this dramatic." That was when Vivian's assistant stepped beside me with an envelope. "Mrs. Hawthorne would appreciate discretion," she said quietly. "For your time and your absence after today." My name was typed on the front. Isaiah Turner. Missing the second I felt my jaw set before I could stop it. Not anger. Something older. My thumb rubbed the safety wire scar until the skin went pale. Naomi would have noticed that. I looked past the envelope, past Vivian's expensive calm, past Grant's clipboard. Under the left access panel, one seal tag hung crooked. And that jet was not just expensive. It was hiding something. I did not touch the envelope. That bothered Grant more than if I had thrown it back at him. Men like that knew how to handle anger. Anger gave them something to report. Silence made them guess. I set my tool bag on the mat beneath the left wing and pulled on nitrile gloves. The jet had a clean belly, no streaking, no obvious leaks near the hydraulic bay, no fresh puddle under the actuator lines. Too clean. Maybe. Aircraft usually told the truth in small messes. Grant watched me from 3 feet away. "You won't find much," he said. "Sensor nuisance. We've seen it before." "Then you won't mind me looking." His clipboard shifted against his chest. I started with the basics. Panel screws first. Paint marks. Torque stripes. Edge wear. A real inspection begins before the panel opens. Anybody can read a logbook. The airplane keeps its own notes in places people forget to wipe down. The first 2 screws had old tool marks. Normal. The third had a fresh half-moon scrape where the driver slipped. The fourth sat tighter than the rest. I took a picture before loosening it. Vivian stepped closer, careful not to touch anything. "How long will this take?" "Long enough to be right." Grant gave a small breath through his nose, almost a laugh. "Mrs. Hawthorne, this is exactly why we prefer our own crew." I kept my eyes on the panel. Inside, the hydraulic line looked clean. Fittings dry, no obvious failure. The warning sensor had been replaced recently, just like the log said. But the safety wire on the access latch pulled my attention back. It was twisted neat, almost pretty. Wrong direction. Not enough for a passenger to see, not enough for a rushed inspector to care, but any mechanic who had spent years wiring bolts in cramped spaces would feel it before he explained it. My fingers reached for my duckbill pliers, except they were not in my chest pocket. They were still in the side pouch. That little miss made heat climb up the back of my neck. I heard Naomi's voice from that morning. "Eat your cereal, baby?" I hated how easy it was to be quiet. My phone buzzed. A text from Naomi's after-school sitter. "Naomi says a lady gave you money. She wants to know if everything is okay." My hand stopped on the panel edge. Across the hanger, the envelope sat on a chair like it belonged there. Grant followed my glance. Family complications. I looked at him then. He did not smile. That made it worse. I photographed the seal tag, the wire pattern, the sensor housing, and the logbook page. Then I checked the serial stamp under the light. One digit had been overwritten by hand. Machines don't lie. Something here wasn't just broken. It was wrong. The seal tag was smaller than a postage stamp, aluminum with a thin red stripe and a stamped batch number along the bottom edge. Most people would have missed it because most people look for broken things. Cracks, leaks, smoke, warning lights that stay on. But aircraft maintenance is just as much about patterns. Who touched what? When they touched it. Whether the airplane remembers a hand the paperwork forgot. I held my flashlight low and angled it across the tag. The shine was wrong. A 6-year-old tag should have dulled around the crimp, especially in Gulf Air. This one had a clean bite mark where the pliers pressed it shut. Newer. Much newer. Grant took half a step forward. "Careful," he said. "Those tags get replaced during routine checks. Not this one." His mouth moved like he had another sentence ready, then decided to keep it. I turned back to the safety wire. The twist count was fine. The diameter was fine. Stainless, aviation grade, neat as Sunday hair. But the direction pulled against the latch instead of securing it with tension. Whoever did it knew enough to make it look right, and not enough to make it hold right. Or they knew exactly what they were doing and needed it opened later. That thought put me back 6 years. I was standing outside Sacred Heart Hospital with vending machine coffee burning my tongue because I was too tired to wait for it to cool. Denise was in room 412 with a fractured collarbone, 2 cracked ribs, and eyes that would not stay in one place when she heard aircraft overhead. Naomi was 3 then. She had fallen asleep across 2 plastic chairs with 1 shoe missing. I remembered that because a nurse found the shoe under a brochure rack at 2:17 in the morning. The bill that came later was $38,640 after insurance argued with everybody. I paid the first part by selling my old toolbox. The red one my father left me. I told Naomi it went to help another mechanic. She believed me because children believe the version of you that hurts them least. A year after that, I turned down a lawyer who said we might have a case. I remember his office smelled like lemon cleaner and wet carpet. Naomi was learning to write her name, and I could not imagine teaching my daughter the word deposition before she learned subtraction. So I stayed quiet. Quiet cost rent money. Quiet cost sleep. Quiet cost Denise looking at me like I had chosen airplanes over her pain. Grant's clipboard made a soft click against his ring. I looked up. He knew. Maybe not all of it. Maybe not Denise. Maybe not Naomi asleep with 1 shoe. But he knew that tag did not belong there. I slipped the tag number into my notebook and closed my fingers around the pen until the plastic bent. That tiny piece of aluminum was not just evidence. It was a door somebody had locked from the other side. By the time I got Naomi from the sitter, the envelope was still in my truck. I had put it on the passenger seat like it was something alive and mean. Naomi climbed in, saw it, and buckled herself without asking at first. That told me she had already been thinking about it. Her balsa wood plane sat in her lap inside a shoebox. 1 wing still leaned higher than the other. She had taped a paper label to the nose. Pancake 1. We drove 3 blocks before she said, "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Did that lady pay you because we're poor?" The question landed so soft I almost missed how deep it cut. I kept both hands on the wheel. My right thumb found the scar near the base of my nail and pressed there until the turn signal clicked louder than it should have. "No," I said. Naomi looked out the window at the pawn shop, the tire store, the church sign missing 2 letters. "Then why did she pay you?" I wanted to tell her adults did ugly things when they were scared. I wanted to tell her money could sound polite while it was insulting you. I wanted to tell her I had let too many people buy my silence already. Instead, I said, "It's complicated." She nodded like that helped. It did not. At home, she carried her shoebox to my little kitchen table and opened it beside the stack of bills I had turned face down. While I reheated rice and chicken in a skillet, she took the crooked wing off her model and placed it inside my toolbox. "For tomorrow," she said, "in case you need a wing that's learning." I had to turn toward the stove for a second. The pan was not hot enough yet, but I stirred anyway. Later that night, my phone rang. "Grant Kellerman." I stepped onto the back porch so Naomi would not hear, but the screen door never closed right unless you lifted it. I forgot. It stayed open a crack. "You're making this larger than it needs to be," Grant said. "I haven't made anything yet." "You call FAA over a paperwork irregularity. Hawthorne drops every independent contractor tied to this field. You included. Safety wire direction isn't paperwork. Don't play noble with me. Turner. Men with rent due can't afford noble." Behind me, the kitchen went quiet. I turned. Naomi stood near the table, one sock twisted halfway around her foot, eyes fixed on my phone. Grant kept talking. "You want your daughter sleeping somewhere better than that duplex. Think carefully." That was his mistake, not the threat. Saying it where my child could hear. I ended the call without answering. Then I walked to the truck, took the envelope from the seat, and brought it inside. Naomi watched me place it unopened on the kitchen table. I did not explain. For once, silence had to become an action. The next morning, I returned to Hangar 7 before the sun cleared the fuel tanks. Vivian Hawthorne was already there, dressed for travel, her son sitting near the window with headphones around his neck. Grant stood beside the jet stairs with 2 pilots and a line service kid who kept pretending not to listen. "You have 10 minutes, Vivian said. I opened my notebook. "Then you should spend them well." Grant laughed once. "Mrs. Hawthorne." He found a seal tag he doesn't like. That's all. I set the first photo on the counter inside the FBO lounge, the seal tag, then the second, the safety wire, then the logbook page with the overwritten digit. "No speeches, just paper." "This tag was crimped recently," I said. "But your log says that panel has not been opened since the hydraulic sensor replacement 6 years ago." Grant reached for the photo. "I moved it back 2 inches. His face changed just enough for Vivian to notice. The system was inspected. Grant said, "Digital log, dual sign-off, no active leak, no pressure loss. Grounding this aircraft over cosmetic concern would be irresponsible." That sounded reasonable. For about 10 seconds. Even I hated that it sounded reasonable. Then I placed an old incident report beside the photos. Date, tail number, same service contractor, same hydraulic warning pattern, same sensor line. Vivian leaned closer. Grant's voice sharpened. "That report is closed." My ex-wife was on that aircraft. The room did not get loud. It got smaller. Oliver took off his headphones. Vivian looked at me then. Really looked. And something behind her polished calm missed a step. Grant shook his head. "A rough landing 6 years ago has nothing to do with this flight. It does if the same false sign-off hid the same warning." He turned toward Vivian, Your son needs to be in Boston. You delay this jet. You delay a child's medical care because a mechanic wants to relitigate his divorce. That one almost worked. I saw it hit her. The appointment, the fear, the mother in her standing up before the owner did. Then she picked up the logbook herself. Grant did not like that. Vivian, he said, dropping the title for the first time. You do not understand what you're looking at. She kept reading. I pointed to the handwritten digit. That batch number wasn't manufactured until 4 years after the recorded inspection. The FBO restroom door stuck behind us. Some man tugged too hard, cursed under his breath, and the sound made everybody flinch for no reason at all. Grant's hand tightened around his clipboard. Finally, he said, we had to keep that aircraft in service. Do you understand what a grounded Hawthorne jet costs per day? Contracts, donor meetings, medical flights, payroll. One warning light can destroy a whole operation when people panic. There it was. Not evil in a cape. Just a man who had decided safety was too expensive. The truth was clear now. The only question left was whether I had the nerve to make the call. Vivian asked everyone to leave except me, Grant, and the pilot. Grant refused at first. Then Vivian said his name once. Quiet and flat. And he stepped back like the floor had shifted under him. She stood beside the counter with the envelope in her hand. I don't know what happened 6 years ago, she said. But I know what happens if my son misses that appointment. Her voice did not break. That made it harder. She placed the envelope in front of me, then added a business card with a number written on the back. Enough to move your daughter somewhere better, she said. Enough to get out from under whatever this life has done to you. 48 hours. Mr. Turner. That's all I'm asking. Let us fly. And I'll have my legal team review everything after Boston. It was not a cartoon bribe. That would have been easier. It sounded like school supplies without counting pennies. A safer apartment. A bedroom window for Naomi that did not face a dumpster. A used car that started every morning without prayer. For a moment, I saw it all. Then I saw Naomi's crooked model wing sitting inside my toolbox. In case you need a wing that's learning. My silence had worn a good coat for years. Protection, patience, being the bigger man. But standing there, with that jet fueled and waiting, I finally recognized the shape of it. Fear had learned my manners. I picked up the envelope. Grant's shoulders loosened. Vivian closed her eyes for half a second. Then I set the envelope beside the logbook, unopened. I don't ground airplanes, I said. Bad paperwork does. Grant whispered something I did not catch. I took out my phone and called the number I still had from a man named Walter Briggs, an FAA liaison who once told me, if you ever see a maintenance sign-off that smells wrong, don't call the company first. He answered on the 4th ring. Briggs. This is Isaiah Turner, A&P certificate ending in 71Q. I'm at Pensacola Coastal FBO with a Hawthorne Gulfstream showing a mismatched maintenance seal, overwritten batch digit, and historical hydraulic warning tied to a closed incident report. There was 1 second of silence. Then Walter said, "Do not let that aircraft move." I looked through the glass. Oliver stood near the boarding stairs, small under the wing shadow. Vivian followed my eyes and understood before anyone spoke. Tell me honestly, what would you have done if one phone call could protect strangers, but cost your child the easier life you've been trying to give her? Would you make it, I want to know? When the call ended, nobody in that hangar was standing where they had been before. Walter Briggs did not hurry when he entered the FBO. That was the first thing everybody noticed. People in private aviation moved fast around money. Walter moved like money could wait. Gray jacket, FAA badge, old leather folder under one arm. He crossed the lounge toward me, and the room changed before anyone understood why. Then he saw my hands. Not my face. My hands. The skin beneath his left eye moved once. His mouth opened. But the first word came out wrong. Turner. Wait. Blue. He stopped. Swallowed. A and P Turner. I gave one nod. Walter looked at the photos on the counter, then at the seal tag inside the small plastic evidence sleeve I had asked the line service kid for. You found this on the Hawthorne aircraft. I did not answer. I did not need to. The pilot set his coffee down without looking at the table. Grant stepped back half a pace, then caught himself and stepped forward again like he could edit the movement. Vivian's assistant went pale around the mouth. Oliver looked from Walter to me, trying to understand why adults had gone still. Walter said 2 words. Blue tag. The pilot's face changed first. Then Lyle the dispatcher, who had appeared near the doorway, whispered. That's him. A fuel tech named Ramon took off his cap. He did not know why. Maybe. He just did it. The line service kid straightened his shoulders like somebody had called attendance. Vivian was the last to move. She turned slowly toward Grant. The silence that followed had weight. Not quiet exactly. More like every engine noise outside had been pushed behind thick glass. Walter opened his folder. Aircraft is grounded pending inspection, he said. No taxi, no reposition, no alternate crew sign-off until federal review clears the maintenance record. Grant's confusion lasted 2 seconds. Then calculation came back. Walter, this is excessive, he said. You're grounding a medical flight. Walter looked at him. You grounded it when you signed bad paper. Nobody spoke after that. Vivian walked to the glass doors. Her son stood near the boarding stairs, backpack still on one shoulder. She opened the door herself, crossed the hot concrete, and put one hand on his back. No speech. No apology yet. Just a mother pulling her child away from an unsafe airplane. Naomi's crooked model wing was still in my toolbox at home. For some reason, I thought about that then. Walter placed the evidence sleeve beside my notebook. Isaiah, he said. Softer now. You did right. I looked at Grant. He was staring at the seal tag like it had betrayed him. But aluminum does not betray anybody. It only remembers who bent it. The federal report took months. People wanted me to be happy about that. Like paperwork moving slowly could feel like justice if it had the right letterhead. Grant Kellerman was removed before the investigation finished. Hawthorne Aviation suspended 2 contracts. 3 aircraft got inspected again. 1 old incident report. Denise's flight came back open. Walter asked if I wanted to push for more. There were things I could have done. Names I could have dragged through public hearings, reporters who left messages with voices polished smooth, a lawyer who said the word damages like he was setting a hook. I gave the evidence I had. I did not give them my daughter's childhood as a headline. That was the line I chose. On the way home from the final interview, I stopped at a craft store to buy Naomi more balsa wood. They were out of the thin sheets she liked. So I bought cardboard, 2 glue sticks, and a roll of blue painter's tape she would probably say was the wrong blue. The parking lot smelled faintly of jet fuel from the airfield down the road, but softer now, mixed with warm cardboard and the paper bag on the passenger seat. That night, Naomi and I sat at the kitchen table fixing pancake 1. She held the crooked wing against the body while I lined the edge with tape. Is Mom going to know? She asked. Maybe, I said. Will she come back? I pressed the tape flat with my thumb. I don't know, baby. Naomi nodded. She did not look crushed. She looked like a child learning that honest answers sometimes come without handles. The seal tag stayed in an evidence bag downtown. I never framed it. Never kept a copy on my wall. Some things are too small to display and too heavy to throw away. A week later, Vivian Hawthorne sent a handwritten note. No check, no legal language. Just 7 lines. One of them crossed out so hard the paper nearly tore. I put it in a drawer with Naomi's school pictures and never answered. Maybe I should have. Maybe one day I will. Here is the only lesson I can say. Honestly, silence can look like dignity from the outside. Sometimes it is just fear wearing clean shoes. Naomi finished the wing and held the plane up under the kitchen light. It's still leaning, she said. I see that. She smiled. Good. That's how it knows it survived. Outside, a small plane passed somewhere above the dark roof, low enough for the window glass to hum. Naomi did not flinch. Neither did I. If this story stayed with you, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been offered something that looked like help, but felt like it would cost you a piece of yourself? Have you ever stayed quiet so long that the silence started hurting the people you were trying to protect? Tell me about it in the comments. Somebody reading down there may need your story more than you know. And if you believe ordinary fathers deserve stories where their skill, patience, and dignity finally get seen, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with another story about a person everybody underestimated, one small detail nobody else noticed, and the choice that changed everything. Until then, take care of your people. They're watching more than your words.